All right, public comment. Anybody like to speak to the board?
A comment.
Turns out there is somebody.
Have a comment.
Do you mind if I pass these out? I just have some stuff.
That'd be fun.
There, she's going. It's got her name on it.
Good morning. I just wanted to come. My name is Matthew Lambert. I'm the Communications and Development Specialist for Ability Building Community here in Rochester. I wanted to come and invite you all to Ability Fest, which is just like old times, Mark.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm back in high school. Ability Fest is our community event. It's not a fundraiser. It's just a big fun party that we have with our individual servant staff, but we also invite the community over. So actually anybody in this room and anyone that's watching is also invited. But the fun part about Ability Fest this year, and the unique part, is that we've had to cancel it the past 2 years because of COVID. One of the best parts about Ability Fest is that is an opportunity for a lot of people to come see what we actually do on a daily basis. One of the fun things is we give scheduled tours. Like I said, there's plenty of individuals there to meet with. There's going to be music, games, a Soak Your Staff, where you get to pay 50 cents to fill up a super soaker and blast our staff members. I'm not personally a part of it, but I will be paying a lot of money to soak my fellow colleagues. But it's just a lot of fun. It's on June 17th. It's from 4:30 to 7:30. It's a family-friendly event, so please feel free to bring any family members or friends. But I just wanted to make sure that I met with the Olmsted County Commissioners and just made sure that you are all invited and know that it's going on. So please, my card is in there. I can't stay. I actually need to get back to the office. We had our golf tournament yesterday, so I have a lot of wrapping up to do on that. But please feel free to give me a call or send me an email. I can also set up times for just individual tours, anything like that.
2 questions.
Sure.
Where is it at?
Ability Fest is at our building here in Rochester at ABC.
At ABC.
Yep.
All right. Are you DJ Matt then?
I am not DJ Matt. Yes, it's a little misleading. No. We DJ Matt's done it. I believe the last 3 years, and he's very excellent. Plays a lot of family friendly music. So no, I will not be DJing. You'll see me walking around with a camera. Honestly.
Well, sorry you can't stay. You missed a really exciting meeting here this morning.
I see you have a very full agenda. So I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the invitation.
All right. Anybody else with public comment? All right. Hearing none, we'll start with Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we are going to start with a public hearing. Do I need a motion to open the public hearing on this, or we get a presentation first? Brent?
Set it up, I guess.
I could say a few words.
Okay.
So good morning, Commissioners. Ben Johnson, Public Works.
250.
The item before you this morning is our annual bridge priorities list. Each year we update this list according to what we've done for inspections over the past year, and also what we've accomplished in projects over the past year. What Kay is passing out is a map of our updated bridge priorities. The side with the red dots is the county bridges, and on the right side you'll see that that's the list of bridges. Farthest to the right you see the LPI number and sufficiency number. In the past, it's always been the sufficiency number that we've rated our bridges by, and that's what's the number we've gone by to make them eligible for local bridge replacement funds. We're transitioning to the LPI number, which is the local planning index number. We're kind of in the grace period right now where we can use either or until 2024, and then it'll fully transition into the LPI and we'll drop the sufficiency rating off. And then if you flip it over, it's the township bridges, township and cities on the other side. Same thing on the far right, the LPI and sufficiency number, and that's been updated according to our most recent inspections.
What's the FO mean?
The FO means functionally obsolete, so that's a narrow bridge.
And then the LPI number, the higher the number, the better the bridge? Or?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. It's a scale, 100 would be the top. So the LPI, once it falls below 60, it would be eligible for local bridge replacement funds. The sufficiency number, that has to fall below 80, and it has to be structurally deficient or functionally obsolete.
Oh, I know where that one is.
Mr. Jackson, the LPI number does it include the same level of bridge inspection and sufficiency? This is a new index, so what's in that index?
Correct. So our guys go out and they'll look at, the bridge deck, the beams, all of that kind of stuff, and there's different weights on what those things are. The sufficiency rating used to have a little more weight on what the detour would be around that structure, so it wasn't dealing so much with the structure as much, and so I think that's kind of a correction the LPI takes into account. But a little bit of different weight between the two.
So it's a number of factors and each are weighted to get the composite score.
Correct.
And anything below 60 would be considered for replacement.
Correct. Yep, it'd be eligible for local bridge replacement. So each year we need to adopt a new list to be eligible for those replacement funds, and that's what we're asking today, is to hold the public hearing and adopt the new lists for both the township bridges and the county bridges.
So
I hope that the
does it make any
legislature,
difference how many bridges fall below that number that we're working on, or do we just get a percentage of those bridges? I mean, well, we have 200 and some bridges.
Yep.
So do we take a percentage of that, or just?
If they fall below there, we're working on them.
And then when we build a bridge, do we build it with a lifespan?
Typically 50 years is what.
50 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
hopefully the legislature finally comes through or figures out that we get the kind of bonding money for bridges that they,
Yeah, that'd be great.
don't look at me like that.
Did you bump your head this morning, Ken? Yeah.
Getting out of the car, I did. Okay,
All right, we'll open a public hearing. Any motion?
Chairman, one other question. So I know this will go into our capital improvement plan. Are you anticipating that all of the bridges that are below 60 will be recommended into our capital improvement plan for short-term or near-term replacement, or?
Yes, they're all in there in the 5-year plan. Anything that's below that would be eligible is in the 5-year plan. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
If there's no more questions, I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
To open the public hearing.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, public hearing is open. Anybody like to speak about this? Second time, anybody like to speak about this? It's an exciting topic. Third time, anybody like to speak
Move
about
we close
this?
the public hearing.
second,
All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
aye,
Motion,
motion to approve,
motion to second, all in favor, say aye.
aye.
Carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
All right, we'll move on to consent agenda. Approve the May 17th County Board minutes. Proclaim June as Vulnerable Adult Abuse Awareness Month. Approve application for Greater Minnesota Legacy Grant. Approve lottery and DAV deer hunts at Chester Woods and Oxbow Parks. Accept respite care grant amendment. Approve participation in the annual state measures program. Award contract for 2022-130 for installation of fire pump replacement. Award contract for SAP 055-601-023-1. And approved donation of Lot 2, Block 1, Conrad Bar Subdivision, Olmsted County Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Can I get a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carries. All right, we're on to discussion items. First up, approve change order 4 for the Oxbow Nature Center project.
Morning, Commissioners. I'm Carolyn Ziegler, the Olmsted County Parks Director. So what you have in front of you is a resolution to accept a change order for $86,000. And this is due to a lot of design changes that were made. Some of them were early on. The biggest majority of what you're looking at in the design flaws was a firewall rating that was noticed early on through inspections that was not adequate for the current fire rating of the building, so we had to add extra layers of drywall and different windows in our exhibit hall. So that was an added cost for that missed firewall rating there. And we also had a change to our exterior door frames. What was originally in the design was wood door frames throughout the exterior of the building. And for long-term and maintenance holding up of the building, we decided to change that to metal frame door frames throughout the building. So those two are the bigger factors. Some of these are actual deducts, but through the entire base of this $86,000 change order is just some different design changes that we've made along the way. And some of these come from very early on, and they've just kind of piled up as we've been sorting through things and trying to figure them out with both design and construction teams. So that's why it's kind of delayed and coming to you now. So is there any other questions that you have on the change orders?
Ms. Chairman?
Yes.
This is our fourth change order. How are we doing with the budget for contingencies?
We are actually still doing well with our budget. We came in originally under budget, and so we are still within our budget that we started with.
Thank you.
I got a question. You know, I'm going to vote for it, but they miss firewall stuff. Okay, we hire an architect, we hire somebody to design it, we have to hire somebody to review the plans, and now all those things that you're paying people a lot of money for, the experts, they have no skin in this. I mean, shouldn't we get some money back from some of them on this? They miss this firewall thing. Hell, I ain't a firewall guy. Why didn't the architects, the plan review, the construction people, they do this stuff all the time. I almost said a bad S word there. But I mean, and now we got, we missed it. Sorry. Here, you got to pay another $70,000. I'm going to vote for it, but it kills me.
Right. And the other difficulty is that I don't think the general contractor did us a really good job. We've had a lot of problems. Who should have seen some of these things?
There's a lot of
The architect. I mean, okay, well, we screwed up. Pay us the extra money. They should pay half of it or something. I mean, in my way of thinking.
And there's some of that that we can figure out.
And I'm not
on.
complaining to you. I'm just generally carping like I do.
We're at 10% over our planned expense already. Are we expecting that there are going to be more change orders?
Yes, there probably is going to be some more change orders coming because, like I said, these were backlogged from several months ago. And we are continuing to make small changes here and there. But the change orders, if they come, will be smaller in general.
Unless they miss another
they even
firewall.
come to it, because we are shaving off costs in other places too. So as much as we're noticing things that need to be changed, they go in both directions. We're saving some and we're gaining some. So we're trying to keep it as neutral as possible with any changes that we're making, but just always keeping long-term in mind as far as maintenance and upkeep and everything like that. So.
All right, any more discussion?
Move to approve the change order.
Can I get a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, Carlin.
One last comment. Can we can our purchasing staff put something in these contracts? Because this happens like a lot. That if you find something that the experts are supposed to find, of course they always got an excuse why you did this or did that. They should pay half of it or 75%. I mean, why do you hire an architect other than to sign the drawing? Because you got to have a licensed architect to do it.
Argument.
I mean,
Think about it.
it's
I'm Jim
not-
Sook. Think about it.
They're shaking his head, yes.
Think about it.
Higher today.
You're right.
All right, next up, 2021-2022 Minnesota Legislature session outcomes and impacts of Olmsted County. This will be really short.
I think you're right
I'm
about
not
that, Mr.
finished.
Chair. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. My name is Jennifer Burkbaum, Legislative and Policy Analyst for Olmsted County. And I do think it'll be relatively short, and I welcome questions and comments and things like that you may have. I do have a short written summary that I'll share with you.
Okay.
Thank you. And then we can kick off the slides. So I say this every year, but I like to think that every session is different, and it is different, and it always has been. So this session was no different. It was unique as usual. There were some factors coming into the session that was kind of setting things up to be sort of unique. We had a split legislature again. For a while, we were the only state in the nation that had a split legislature, besides Nebraska, who was unicameral. So I think it was in the 2021 election, Virginia actually became a split legislature also. So now we share that. There was a new Senate Majority Leader. You see a picture of Jeremy Miller out of Winona, so kind of local to southeastern Minnesota. And then in the Senate, there was also a new Minority Leader, Melissa Lopez Franzen from the Edina area. And actually with redistricting, she was put in with a veteran senator from her own party, and so she ended up retiring. So she's this will be her last session in the legislature for now. There was an unprecedented $7.7 billion surplus after the November forecast. So we've never seen that before. It actually grew to $9.25 billion after the February forecast. So with that, it almost functioned more like a budget year, even though it was supposed to be more of a policy bonding year because we had these huge surpluses. There was also significant federal funding that was still left from ARPA and the federal infrastructure bill. And then differing policy positions, that's not unusual, I guess. But most of these we saw in the judiciary and public safety area, and that really became kind of clear toward the end of session that there were some differences there. And then, of course, it was a redistricting year, and all the legislators who chose to seek re-election would be on the ballot. All right, we can go to the next slide, please.
I think, Jen, too, the collections in April or May exceeded by another $1.25 billion or something like that on top of all of this money, and
Yes.
you still couldn't get a deal done.
Yeah, the economy or the forecast is still going up, but I can't really comment on getting things done, or I could, but I won't. So I already mentioned it was a traditional bonding year. It ended up being a really busy session. It was condensed because it started in late January, but they did just as much work as they do in a budget year. There were supplemental budget items. They put big omnibus bills together like they do in a budget year. The House committees, there was also a little bit of, not confusion, but just the process was a little bit different to get through. The House committees mostly were remote. The floor sessions were hybrid. The Senate was hybrid for both the committees and the floor. So a lot of the committees were meeting in person, and then the House was virtual. So to kind of manage both as lobbyists, it was kind of just hard at times, and meeting with people in person and then trying to do a virtual meeting up at the Capitol at the same time. And this was the same as last session, but there are 31 House committees for the biennium and 28 Senate committees. About a third of these, or 30%, I think, were related to health, housing, and human services. So that was, a lot of the committee work pertained to the work that counties do. And then, again, we set a record every year, but there were 4,610 bill introductions in the Senate over the biennium and almost 5,000 in the House.
And as a comparison, in the 2011-2012 biennium, 10 years ago, there were just over 3,000 bill introductions in the House. So it's about a 2,000 bill difference in 10 years. So that kind of just added to the busyness.
Most of which never get heard, right? I mean, it's just an absurd number when you look at that and say, how do you ever anticipate getting
Right.
even a small portion of those?
Most of them, well, I guess I don't know how many actually got hearings, but I would say compared to years past, there are more bills moving through committee agendas too. So just the whole volume is increasing. So toward the end of session, there's about a week left, and leadership, the governor, the House and Senate leaders agreed to a framework for the budget and what they wanted to accomplish this session. So that included $4 billion in spending over 2 biennia, and they broke that down for $1 billion for K-12 education, $1 billion for health and human services, $450 million for public safety, and then about $1.3 billion for other areas that were agreed to throughout the week. That balanced out with $4 billion of tax bill spending and relief. And then there was also agreement on a $1.4 billion bonding bill and $150 million in cash with that bill. But as the week went on, things just didn't come together. They actually did agree to a tax bill, but that was going to be the last bill taken up. And the spending bills, the majority of the big ones like HHS, K-12, transportation, they just couldn't come up with an agreement. And so very little ended up passing, as you all know. Regarding Olmsted County's 11 priorities for the session, the majority of them, 5, would have been in a bonding bill. So the MRF, Graham Exhibition Center, the local transportation programs like the local bridge program, local road improvement program, and local road wetland replacement program, and then emergency shelter for capital for emergency shelter facilities. All 4 of those were included in the governor's bonding recommendations when he released those in January. So we felt like that was a good sign. The interchange was included in the Senate transportation bill. There was over 17 million in trunk highway bonds for that project. So they were all in the mix, but we never ended up seeing a legislative bonding bill. So we don't know for sure if our projects would have made it or not, but no bill passed, as you know. Okay, next slide, please. And then we also know that a tax bill was agreed to, but it didn't pass. So that's where our county program aid priority came into play. We were successful in the agreement that there would have been a $30 million increase for county program aid, and that would have equaled this increase for local government aid as well. They would have gotten a $30 million increase as well. Other key provisions in that agreement were $6 million statewide for SWCD aid, one-time $20 million pandemic rental assistance, solid waste management tax for county score grants, so about 3% of the solid waste management tax on top of what already goes for score would be dedicated. And then a few of the priorities from both the House and the Senate were also included in that. So the Senate really wanted to eliminate income taxes on Social Security benefits. They reduced slightly the first tier tax rate. And then the House's big priority was changing the renter's credit to become a refundable income tax credit.
But none of it got done.
None of it passed, you're right. They never ended up taking up the bill. So then we're left with the rest of our 5 priorities. We did have some success in these last 5. One of our priorities that we've had for a number of years is to prevent legislation that would impact our ability to manage solid waste, kind of regarding the waste energy facility, most specifically and that no legislation passed there, so that was a good sign. In the local justice initiatives that we had, we were pursuing a policy change related to data sharing so that our co-response teams can better share data and serve the public. And that did pass in an HHS policy bill. And then we also were advocating for county community supervision funding, a greater reimbursement. And there was a lot of discussion on that this session. Both the House and the Senate had public safety bills, had increases for county probation funding, but they didn't come to an agreement, so nothing passed. And then HHS workforce shortages was another priority. Both House and Senate HHS bills had funding that would help in this area, but again, they didn't agree, so that didn't pass. And then same for the Family First Prevention Services Act. There was some funding that would help counties and the state implement that federal act. And then in the last bullet related to mental health services for children and youth, specifically crisis stabilization services like what we provide in the crisis center. We were able to get some language passed in the sort of like an mini omnibus mental health and competency restoration bill. So that language did pass, and we're still analyzing it in hopes that it will have a positive impact for Olmsted County and the Southeast Regional Crisis Center. All right, so 3 out of the 11 is kind of what I'm saying passed for us. We can go on to the next one. Other bills with county impacts. I mentioned the mental health finance bill and the competency restoration bill. So Olmsted County is already doing some work in competency restoration, and this statewide program did pass. I believe they put about $16 million into competency restoration. So we'll have to watch that closely to see how it's implemented and how it may align with the work we're doing here in our county and the region. In addition to the children's crisis stabilization, the other mental health provisions in that bill included funding and policy around locked intensive residential treatment services or IRTS facilities. That was something we were supporting. Mental health urgency room pilot, school-linked behavioral health grants, shelter-linked mental health grants, an African American mental health service to offer culturally specific, comprehensive, trauma-informed mental health and substance abuse disorder services, or substance use disorder services. So I think a lot of good things in that bill, although we know that it's never really enough. We could put more resources into mental health needs for sure. So the bill totaled $92 million, of which about $60 million was for the mental health provisions. Then the opioid settlement, this was another issue that counties were involved with. The Association of Minnesota Counties was heavily involved with that settlement agreement. Olmsted County was part of the settlement and the case. And I believe that an earlier estimate I saw is that we would receive about $4.27 million over 18 years. Is that approximately what it is? Okay. And the city of Rochester is estimated to receive about $1.63 million. So it's nice that that bill did pass, so we can move forward with that settlement. The frontline worker pay and unemployment insurance, that also passed maybe with about a month to go in session. We believe that some of our employees here will be eligible for some of that frontline worker pay, and it is something that they will apply directly to the state to find out if they're eligible and to receive that funding. But I know Human Resources is working on that and can answer questions if there are any. A Veterans and Military Affairs supplemental bill passed. Our Veterans Department is still analyzing what passed there. Some of the things that seemed like they could impact counties. There was $450,000 in fiscal year for the County Veterans Service Office grant program, about 1.7 million for temporary alternative housing options for homeless veterans and former service members, and then 1.1 million for incentives for landlords to assist in housing homeless veterans. So I think we're looking at those programs more to see if they could help make an impact here in our county. And then finally, a drought relief, agriculture, and broadband package passed. So there were some like soil health initiatives in the ag portion, so we'll be looking at that and see if it aligns with some of the programs we're doing here. And then significant broadband investments too, statewide. And I think we're on the final slide. So will there be a special session? I guess we don't know. Wait and see. And then
Are they still talking that you hear? Is there debate going on? Is there a push?
I'm not hearing much. I think that people are still meeting, but I'm not sure. I'm really just not sure. I do know though that elections and campaigns and fundraising is really ramping up. So it just kind of seems like we're moving forward. So this summer we'll begin working on the 2023 session priorities, and I'm also going to be doing some outreach to the cities and the townships in the county and working with other local partners. So I'll likely be reaching out to you as board members if I'm meeting with your township or a city, and you're welcome to join me. It's going to be a pretty informal conversation just to kind of check in and see if any legislative items or other come out of them, but always welcome to join me, and I always welcome other input that you may have.
Mr. Chair? Yes. You know, Ms. Berkram, you kind of apologize that only 3 of our priorities actually made it into law, but that apology should not come from you, because we really did have any number of things lined up in those final bills.
Yes.
And there were a lot of things that you helped and our colleagues helped get to the finish line. So it's very disappointing, but I think sometimes even when things don't pass in a session and you have a kind of messy end that they have this year, the way has been paved for some of those for the future. Even though there'll be so many new legislators next year, hopefully there'll be some of the veterans who remember the hearings and the committee the previous year. So I think what I'm hearing is that there's a lot of particularly long-term care and residential care providers and League of Cities and AMC and have, you know, been calling out that we were on the 1-yard line when they quit, and that there were it's going to have a lot of impact on people and on services throughout the state if they don't finish. And I agree with you. It doesn't seem likely that they're going to want to return. But I think this session, my observation on serving on our legislative committee is that you really did a lot of great work for us, and we had a lot of opportunity for our staff and some of us as board members to testify on the impacts it would have on our county, and I think we got listened to.
Right.
I appreciate that. That's really the measure of your work.
In what should have appeared to be a fairly easy, straightforward, with money coming out of every pocket that we had. You'd be commended, Jennifer, for as much as you did accomplish and get done. I mean, I would hope that anybody listening or in the paper that, I mean, the public should just be outraged in an election year with this money. Is the amount of work that they did not get done and the significance of the projects, both bonding, infrastructure, federal match for the infrastructure money. Important things, very important to this area, are interchange and future waste energy. It's appalling that they could not sit down and compromise in a small degree in order to figure out how to spend $8 billion. So, I mean, I think the public should just be outraged. I think they should hear about it. It's an election year, which blows me away that they didn't get this done. So just for my normal kind of complaining about state legislature.
It really hurts.
You may have heard this
return
before.
federal money for infrastructure when we've been documenting for years the amount of investment that's needed in infrastructure. Now we have federal funds
Right.
to help us, and we're gonna turn that back to other states.
that we can't match because they didn't pass it. It was unbelievably an appalling example of how ineffective and how polarized and gridlocked we are in this state for extremely important things. And when we have the money, and we just got told another $1 billion+ in collections occurred. So the pot just continues to grow. Don't spend it all on programs. You may have heard this stuff before, people. But,
20 years, Ken, 20 years we've been doing it.
This
Like
is
hearing
incredible.
Still get killed at 104
It's
or
incredibly-
44 and 14.
Incredibly
Kids are still in
frustrating.
crappy conditions. But we can't figure out how to spend $9-10 billion.
But at least in other times, we knew that there were budgetary constraints, and we knew that it was a push and a lift in here. But this time around, you sit there and say, look at your checkbook and go, wow, that's not real, is it? Yeah, it's real. So, sorry, I'm lecturing and pontificating. I'm done.
Yeah.
No, you're not. You got 6 more months.
I can, yeah, you're
It
right.
was a very disappointing session, and I'm certainly hopeful that the legislatures figure out how they negatively impacted the people of Minnesota by not getting anything done, and especially how they impact negatively the counties, who receive all the mandates to carry out all of the state's human services. So it's very difficult. However, in those ashes that were left, I think there are some things that we can pick out that we really did well. And to your credibility and all your good work, as well as the legislative committee and the comments that came from all of the commissioners, we did move our top 3 items to the 1 yard line. They were all in the bills. They were all set to go. And that's something that we should be proud of, because we did talk to our legislatures. I do think that we have an impact when we go meet with them in person. And the tax chair, Carla Nelson, did listen to us, as well as other counties, when we talked about the split between the LGAs and the CPAs, the county program aid. The tax bill started out that split was 70-30, that the counties were only going to receive 30% of that amount of money. And we made the argument to say, look, you give us the mandates, give us the money to go with that. And to Senator Nelson's credit, she says, that's right, we do that. And she did, on the floor, change that appropriation to at least make it an equal split. So I would like to think that we had some impact on that, and for the benefit of not Olmsted, but all the other counties. So hopefully next year we'll do well again.
For me.
Thanks, commissioners. I do appreciate your kind words, and I think that you're right. All 11 priorities were in the mix at the end of session, and really I feel like we did our job and we accomplished a lot. The ultimate results, we do have some results, and that's a positive too. And seeds were planted for future years. But I do want to thank all of you who came up and worked with me at the Capitol. I know you came up probably at least 3 times, maybe even 4, and I do think it makes a huge difference when elected officials at the local level are meeting with our state elected officials. They listen to you, and it makes a big difference. And I'm kind of a sentimental person, so I just have to say this because I may present again in December, but I just really appreciate working with the whole board. I think you guys all work so well together. You really balance each other out well, and it's just been a privilege to work with you. So I know change is coming, and that's okay.
Thanks,
But
Jennifer.
I
You
wanna-
do a good job. A great job.
You got it to the 1 yard line, but they got a really
I'm
big
done now.
defensive line.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, Next up, approve use of payment in lieu of taxes for Mailwood 2.
So,
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
What are the chances the remote control works for me at the county board other than the HRA board? There we go. Good morning, everyone. We're here to talk again about the Mayowood 2 project. Specifically, we'll be talking about the request for pilot or PILT. A few things we're going to cover ahead of time, as this is the first time this project is in front of the county board and not just the Housing and Redevelopment Authority. So we'll do a high-level overview of the project and the application process for Minnesota Housing. This is information you've seen before, but as we are in front of the county board, like I said, we felt it was important to bring this forward again. This is the approved site plan for Mayowood 2. This is on the old Conrad Bars property. This was a property that was split and has been developed in 2 phases. Phase 1 was developed a few years ago as the Mayowood project for individuals experiencing severe and persistent mental illness, and that is owned and operated by Center City. Phase 2 is going to be on the other side of the property. The completed building will look very similar to Phase 1. This project will be serving, we will have 36 units, and we will be serving seniors in our community age 55 and above. 18 of those units will be serving seniors at a 50% area median income or below, and 18 of those units will be focused on serving seniors at or below 30% of area median income. This is the lowest income seniors in our community that we are serving. We will have 31 bedroom units in the property, 3 of which will be fully accessible, and 6 2-bedroom units in the facility, 3 of which will be fully accessible. 7 units in the building will be serving high priority homeless in our community, and those individuals will be pulled from the coordinated entry system. They also must meet the requirement of being age 55 and above. The building will be 3 stories. We'll have laundry and trash chutes on each floor, common areas on each floor, main floor mailroom and sitting area, community room with a kitchenette, covered entryway, and all units will be designed with universal design. So what this means is that all units will have different features to help facilitate maximum accessibility for all people in the units. We're applying to Minnesota Housing for funds for this project. This is done annually in what they call the consolidated RFP. This is the way that we apply for a variety of different funding structures to develop or preserve affordable housing throughout the state of Minnesota. This is the only way to access tax credits, housing infrastructure bonds, deferred loans, and a variety of different home ownership projects. The funds are awarded through the consolidated RFP in 2 buckets of money. They have 2 competitive areas, the metro area and greater Minnesota housing. They do this on purpose to ensure that not all funds are disproportionately allocated to the metro. Generally, that works. Every year there is a process to receive the development money from Minnesota Housing. The timeline this year, the RFP was dropped publicly in April. Applications are due in July, which is coming up very quickly. We will be receiving funding awards in December. If we are funded, we anticipate that construction would start October of 2023 with an opening of October 2024. However, this is a highly competitive process. Only about a third of applications every year are funded annually. And they're based off of a very complicated scoring system, which we'll talk about a little bit. Last year, the funded project scored from 114 to 124, and that was for accessing 9% tax credits. It's a very complicated scoring system. It's a little bit of a choose your own adventure. There's different decisions that we make throughout the process to determine which points are more important for our project. And it's very much a balancing game of what we need to build for our community, what our community needs, and what also scores. This is one scoring example out of 48 to show how we make decisions on what we are moving forward with. So for those high priority homeless, we've said that we will be serving 7 units of high priority homeless. So there's 3 different ways we could do that. So if we went from 50 to 100% of units all serving high priority homeless, we could access 30 points. If we chose to have 10% to 49% of our units serving high priority homeless with a minimum of 7 units in the property, we would score 10 points. And then 7 points also for 5% to just under 10%. Must be at least 4 units. So what we chose is that we would serve 7 units for high priority homeless, which will net us 10 points for the project. Going higher for the permanent supportive housing then also changes the scope of our project, and going lower, sometimes you start to see financial impacts that just don't make the project worth moving forward, serving that population. There are 6 different categories that our application is scored against. And we do our best to achieve as many points in each of these categories as possible. And each one has a range of points depending on what you're doing. Target population for this, we're serving low-income seniors. This was the decision that the board made last fall on what we wanted to do with this project. We also are serving the lowest incomes for the longest duration. So this is the rental assistance that the HRA board passed last month. We passed that rental assistance for the longest duration required by Minnesota Housing, which will net us the greatest amount of points in this area. The board also indicated last fall that you wanted to make sure that we were serving the lowest income seniors in our community, which is why we are serving the 30% and the 50% area median income seniors. Geographic choice. This is an increasing conversation in the community. There's different points awarded for where you build your project. However, it is based on priorities dictated by Minnesota Housing, not the local community. Sometimes those priorities align, sometimes they do not. The geographic choice that we chose for this project, we chose because it was an underutilized parcel and we had ownership to it. Is it going to net us the most amount of points according to Minnesota Housing? No. Is it the best decision for our community? Yes. And so we are working to maximize our points in other buckets and other areas in order to take up that slack there. There's different points for community and economic development. Building characteristics, that's where we talk about the universal design, the covered entryway, making sure that there are accessibility features on each floor, such as the laundry on each floor. There's different points for if you do solar or geothermal, which don't always pay out at the back end. So we have maximized those areas as much as we could as well. The bucket we're going to talk about a little bit today is the efficient use of scarce resources and leverage. That's what they call it. This is an area where local funders have a direct influence on how we score out with Minnesota Housing.
So on the geographic location, their criteria may or may not have any relevance to the local community. It's just things that they...
It is based off things that they have determined as important, such as not concentrating poverty, which of course is important, but they also look at different things about urban core, transportation, utilization of underutilized space. So their priorities for Rochester don't necessarily align with those that the city has passed and the county has preferred. We're still doing just fine with that. We're just not going to maximize our points there, and that's okay. It's going to have to be okay.
It's gonna have to be okay. Given that there's zero flexibility in how it's...
we have some flexibility in that when they release their QAP. You know, you're going to ask me what QAP stands for, and of course, I'm drawing a blank. Basically, it's the opportunity for us to provide input on what their priorities are for the next 3 to 5 years. And this last one that they passed, their mappings didn't change, but that is something that many rural communities have already been squawking a little bit about, to look at some different mapping and geographic priorities. We're not the only community who has been frustrated with that. So the bucket we're going to talk about here a little bit in more detail is the scarce resources and leverage. So we've talked about this at the HRA level a little bit. There's 2 buckets for a total of 26 points. One is the financial readiness to proceed, and the other is the other contributions score. Financial readiness to proceed can net us a full 16 points. This includes any gap financing that we receive, grants, TIF counts in here, tax abatement, or payment in lieu of taxes, or PILT or pilot. In order to get the full 16 points, we need to maximize at 10.5% of the total development cost. The other contributions bucket is worth 10 points. That includes things like fee waivers, land donations, and other in-kind contributions. This needs to equal 10.1% of our total development cost for a total of 10 points. So for the Mayowood 2 example, we're estimating a project right now at 12 million. This is estimated on the high side, we're rounding up. So our goal for the 2 buckets is just under 2.5 million. But we need to make sure that our buckets have the numbers that they need in them. So if we overcompensate for one bucket, that doesn't help to equal out the other bucket. If we were to get 2 million in our financial readiness bucket, but only 400,000 in the other contributions bucket, we still lose points in that other contributions category, and we only still net 16 points in the financial readiness. So at some point, even if we can maximize one bucket over the other and exceed our amount that we need, it's really kind of a moot point when it comes to points in scoring. And ironically, because of how then it affects what we qualify for in a deferred mortgage or other funding, it could actually be harmful to the project if we get too much in some of these buckets.
It's like a Rubik's Cube.
Doesn't that seem strange to anybody else?
She's a genius at this, understanding how to maximize.
This is just why I
points.
take a lot of antacids.
Get it.
So in order for our buckets to balance, we need the 1.22 million in one bucket and the 1.26 in the other, and that equals a balanced scale. So where are we currently in getting all of these buckets together? So this is a snapshot of where we're at. And I'm going to start on the right with the other contributions. So earlier today, you have approved the donation of the land. That has a value of just under 400,000. We're still working with the City of Rochester on the fee waivers. That goes to City Council on June 20th. So those conversations are ongoing. You may recall that with phase 1 of our development, we did some upfront stormwater utility and infrastructure costs there. So all of that money we put into phase 1, we get to count now in this bucket. And so that's that $250,000 there. We're sitting at an estimation of about $968,000 in that bucket, which will net us, we're hoping, 8 of 10 points in that scoring category. And that is hoping and assuming that we would see the full impact from the City of Rochester. On the other side, with the financial readiness to proceed, we were approved for a $450,000 grant from the Rochester Area Coalition. So that's wonderful. And we're going to be talking here very shortly about the pilot request here from the board, which is estimated right now at $1.121 million, which brings our estimated total over what we need at $1.57 million, which would hopefully net us a score of 16 out of 16. Now I have this starred because there's a very good chance that that pilot number will come down. As we were going through the calculations to get that number, the property right now is estimated at a higher value than we think Minnesota Housing will accept. So our current estimated value is in your packet, I think, was 7.8 million. And we suspect that Minnesota Housing will take a look at our project and take a look at the building and decrease what they feel the value of that building is, which would then bring down the pilot, which is okay because we have a lot of buffer in there. So we're anticipating that that number will likely come down.
So they think it will not yield the kind of taxes that we think based on value. So they're reevaluating that to say this is how much built.
Correct. And in their defense, they take a look at all of those projects to make sure that communities aren't artificially inflating the value of their property, to artificially inflate the value of taxes, pilot, or TIF, to bring everything together. And what they do is they look at all of the projects that they've passed, all of the projects before them, the communities where they come from, the other similar developments, and they kind of do a cost comparison. So when we look, for example, at the Manor Hills project that's being built, right now our per unit value is higher than that, even though that building is more expensive and has higher income. So we're anticipating that this will go down a little bit.
Yeah.
So you do have a revised resolution and letter in front of you showing that this is the maximum value that we are asking for, and it will likely come down.
You don't have to defend them. It's okay.
Habit, old habits. And this is the estimated pilot over a period of 20 years. So our request for assistance. The estimated market value by the county right now for Mayo Wood 2 upon completion is $7.8 million. Our estimated pilot payment in year 1 is just over $20,000, and this is a calculation that is based upon the rental income a building is able to have. The estimated value of the pilot over 20 years is $1.122 million. And so we are asking the board to approve the use of pilot over 20 years for this property. Typically, the board does not approve pilot. This is something that is generally done administratively. The process is set by state law, and it's usually done just between offices. However, because this is a value for the project, Minnesota Housing requires that it have board approval and a resolution, which is why it's coming before you rather than just an administrative process. Are there questions, comments, or discussion I can address with our project today?
Mitch, 12 million to build this thing, right?
Correct.
Plus another, this roundabout with the taxes, 1 million, the other valuation. So we have another $2 million in assets in it for a total package of 14 million. 36 units, rough math, divide 36 into 14 million is about $400,000 per unit. Wouldn't we be better off buying 36 houses at $400,000?
So the value of the 12 million that we're submitting to the state is not only the cost to develop the building, but it's also the amount of money we need to put in reserves ahead of time, and it's also accounting for staffing of the building for a period of years. So we have to have those accommodations in that as well.
But staffing too is ongoing cost. It
Correct.
still comes down to, we could buy 36 houses at $400,000. You have a home. What cost benefit is this to get into this dollar amount?
Well, the building is going to be able to house 36 seniors in an environment that is safe for them, that provides on-site staffing and on-site care. Yes, we could certainly purchase 400 units and do those things, but that's the ongoing maintenance of doing that as well has ongoing costs, as we see when we're looking at the properties the HRA currently owns and has to maintain over the spread of the community.
But a $400,000 house is a very nice house.
But
You can
Matt,
go around and maintenance, take care of them in home for the same principle
sure.
of what we're trying to accomplish here.
It's, Matt, it's not just getting a home, I think. You know, we all know that you have to buy a lawnmower, you have to buy shovels, you have to buy, it's not, when, these are very low-income seniors who I don't think probably have the resources to do that sort of thing. If you think about balancing this safe environment with living independently in a home.
But that was always our goal, to have an independent home for a lot of people.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair. Yes, for people who are capable of maintaining a home and have long-term prospects, but we've already acknowledged we have a variety of residential settings where it's housing with services. And what we're building here is housing with services for very low-income seniors. People who probably are not able, are probably in somewhat decline because of age and disability. And maintaining a home would be very difficult, and we'd still have to provide a lot of services. It's more efficient to provide services in a group setting than it is in dispersed settings. And I think that this is, if you look at the choices that people of moderate or high income make as they age, as they often move to a congregate setting, because they have more socialization, they have the services there, they don't have the maintenance requirements, they have an environment which bolsters their physical and mental health. And so what we're doing with this is creating a small facility that meets that need for our very low-income seniors, much like we've done with a variety of other residential care facilities.
These people aren't disabled. It's low income, and it's 55 and older.
Low income.
Well, I think most of us here are 55 and older, but I still live in my own home, and I think most people do want to live in their own home. This isn't a disability house. I see the difference. This is still people that have the mobility, I believe, and have a lifestyle that could live in a home. So I think we're confusing disability people to group homes and independent living. My point is, I got no problem with doing this, things, but we're giving away more than we're receiving back if we go to that dollar amount.
Mr. Chair, colleague, Commissioner, these are very low-income seniors. If you're at 50% or below median income, and we're taking a high number of people who have long-term homelessness into this setting. This is not a group that I think we can assume are able to maintain a healthy lifestyle and a home of their own. I think that there's a need for a lot of home ownership. Absolutely agree with you. But I think in this particular setting, we have people who probably could never afford to buy a house, couldn't afford to maintain a house, and they're living in multifamily housing, just like many people are choosing to do now. I think there's a need for this in the continuum of housing choices that we have in our community. I'm not expressing this very well and very cogently. I think you're making some assumptions about their capacity. I'm making other assumptions about capacity. We're maybe going like this to each other. But I think that in the social services side, and I wish some of them folks were here to kind of talk about what they see with those vulnerable adults that they're dealing with.
That's the difference. Is this a vulnerable adult facility or not? What is it?
Yes, and.
What is it?
We are serving the lowest income seniors in our community. So when we look at that, the majority of people that we'll be serving in this building survive off of Social Security, which is a check of under $1,000 a month, which means that they have an income of under $15,000 a year. And I think we need to remember that an apartment is also a home. and multifamily living is also a home. And that it provides a lot of other resources that these people have expressed in our meetings with them that they would like, which is congregate living, congregate support.
But my question is, are they vulnerable or are they just low income?
They are low income.
But they have no other handicaps or
We do not have
special needs?
we do not have a target for that, but I think we also need to remember that an individual who has lived in extreme poverty for the most of their adult and sometimes childhood life come into this building with different health needs, both physical and cognitive, than what we may see with a middle income senior. So chances are, yes, there's going to be different levels of vulnerability.
So when somebody applies to be in this place, is that part of their background? We check that out? Are they?
It is income based, but we know with all of the years that we've been working in social service and with our adult and aging services division here at the county, that somebody who has lived in poverty the majority of their life comes with these issues.
Yeah, they
We
may
just
not,
see they go hand in hand.
Hey,
they
Stephanie?
may not be disabled, Commissioner Flynn, but they may have severe health problems or cognitive problems. A lot of reasons why people are low income is because they don't have the health or the energy to do the things they might have wanted to do with their life and don't have the robust health that we do. So they may not be disabled in terms of, having walkers, but they may be health.
So,
Before we go to Travis, I understand your concern. When we're talking $300,000 to $400,000 for an apartment, it's really inefficient. But there's no getting around it. That's the problem.
No, I'm not. I'm just comparing our costs.
Right.
But I bet a lot of these people, you want to live in an apartment or would you like a $400,000 home? I think most of them will take a $400,000 home.
I know, but I don't think we're ever going to get in the business of buying them $400,000 homes.
Well, we could.
I know, but I don't know that I want to do that.
I have a question.
Okay.
So, in your calculation, Matt, you added the $2 million, which would be part of the contributions of the
Yes,
payment
I
in
did.
lieu of taxes, right?
Yep.
But if we bought the houses, wouldn't we also have to have a payment in lieu of taxes to help the cost of that house come down so that people could afford it? So wouldn't that
But
be about the same?
we're not going to receive nothing on this anyway. We're given $400,000 in land plus in lieu of taxes. That's all revenue or cash.
I think what Matt's trying to say is, because I mean, I get these questions. You go out and I'm going to vote for this thing again. But you go out to your local watering establishments and they go, "What in the hell you guys doing? Why don't you just buy a goddamn house for these people for $400 some thousand dollars?" And so we need to be able to explain that cogently. Is that a word, Ken?
Yeah.
Right. Travis wanted to add something in here.
I mean, I think the one thing that this has done for us is it's really exposed how difficult it is to create affordable housing for those folks that we find a gap in our community. And, I know much of the discussion here has been centered around like who's going to be there. And I just want to remind everybody too that we went down this path based on a decision that was made some time ago that this is the population that we should focus on because there is a gap in our community, an identified gap, to address housing for this specific population. So some of the discussion around, well, is this the right population? I think that was asked and answered some time ago. And to Commissioner Podelke's, points around the work that Mitch has done to try to maximize the points and her understanding of this system and how we do that is quite remarkable, frankly. She understands this better than probably anybody, and she's done a really nice job putting a package together that she thinks could maximize the points. Included in that, then, is this payment in lieu of taxes request that she has before you today.
Okay, I appreciate that. Switch the topic a little bit. What happens to this proposal if Rochester does not forgive those fees?
We will look at some different ways to help fill some of that gap, but the reality is that we will just score lower in that category. I think this is an opportunity for ongoing education on how Minnesota housing scores and how that affects all affordable housing development happening in Rochester, and
Well-
how both the city and the county can maximize our different areas of resources to help encourage affordable housing.
Okay, well, let me put this down. You can put this stake in the ground. I will change my vote if they don't abate those fees. Because, you know, we hear a lot of rhetoric about blah, blah, blah. We want to help people do this and that. This is a slam dunk. And they'll say, well, you know, you're putting, if we forgive these fees, they're going to go on all the other taxpayers. Well, what do you think's going on here with the county board? We're putting it on to somebody else. So, I mean, they talk, and I'm not this, I mean, I want to be plain, I'm not threatening, but, you know, you got to put your money where your mouth is. And if they don't want to waive those fees because, well, they'll be forcing it on somebody else, where do you think this money comes from? It doesn't grow on trees. And so if they don't do it, I'll be changing my vote and I'll be bringing it back before this board.
I don't think
You
you'll
can
get
mark
that,
that down.
I mean, I honestly don't think, if they don't approve the fees, this will probably not get funded, and we won't get the opportunity to change our vote. It just won't happen.
Well, we hear a lot of rhetoric. That's
Right,
my
I know,
point.
and I think this is a perfect example of showing how these fees affect the inability to provide affordable housing in this community.
And it's not just the HRA as the developer, it'd be any developer coming forward to build affordable housing at, at this level of subsidy,
Right.
Right,
which generally doesn't happen by a private developer.
right.
Here, I just would like to point out that we are trying to position our community to be able to draw down some of the state money for affordable housing for the lowest income people. In doing that, we've documented through the Maxfield study that senior housing is one of our biggest unmet needs. We've clearly documented that we have a lot of low-income seniors in our community, and we are in a competitive process that focuses on multifamily housing and does not focus on purchase of individual homes for families. You know, there is some home ownership provisions of the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency, but increasingly it's focused on multifamily housing as the least expensive way to, even though it's not inexpensive, to house people. Further, I don't think even if the money was available, we would want to own that many individual homes that we would have to then be responsible for maintaining over the long run, because this is subsidized housing. Whether we subsidize into multifamily, which is a more efficient, cost-effective way, or subsidize into individual homes, I don't think the board would have any appetite to subsidize individual home ownership in the way that these families will be supported through this program.
So, Mr. Chair, I think that sometimes with the community, there's confusion about the term affordable housing. The building itself, or building a house, remains the same no matter
Correct.
who's living in it. So if these were people that had the means to pay the rent, the building would still cost $7 million.
Correct.
Right? So it's not the building of it that's affordable, it's how you house the people in there, and the only way to make it affordable for that segment of population is how you're going to subsidize their rent.
Correct.
And that's really what we're talking about, is the ability and the way to subsidize their rent. And to Commissioner's Beer point, the county has put in a lot of their own money to subsidize that rent. All right, the gift of the land alone is part of it. So we're asking other agencies in the community to contribute, including the city of Rochester, so that those rents can be affordable.
Okay, I
There
think we need to move forward with
I
it.
think we may have chewed this gum long enough.
Yep.
And there's a great deal more that can be said about the waiving of fees, but I would move the question. I'd move to approve.
We have a motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you.
You bet. Good discussion.
One quick last point on this. to Matt's point, we need to be cognizant as a government body that we need to be able to go out and explain this to people. I'm pretty good at explaining road projects. Like when we want to do that 1/4% sales tax, I get a lot of carping about that. But I mean, when you explain it that it's 25 cents on $100, usually that kind of shuts people up. So I think we need to do a little better job educating, because I do get this question, and it's not just from people that hate paying taxes. It's not all Republicans. I can give you some prominent Democrats that go, "Why are you spending $400,000 per unit? Why don't you just build them a house or give them a house or something like that?" So, and I'm not complaining, okay, but I think we need to do a little bit better education job so that we can explain ourselves out. Or at least me, I need a lot of help out when we're talking to people.
I think that's fair.
We can certainly put together a memo with some talking points.
It's a tough argument, though.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Mitch.
I think we need to drop letter E. We'll get with letter D, with our GIS, because we have a bus in 10 minutes to do our road tour. So
We have the GIS.
yep. So
I was looking forward to hearing about GIS.
let's try to do the GIS Administrator Showcase, Physical Development, Geographic Information Systems.
Apparently you have 3 minutes.
We'll be quick.
Tap it out first.
All righty. Well, good morning, commissioners, and thank you for having us here this morning. It's with great pleasure that I introduce the Geographic Information Systems, or the GIS division, to the county board this morning. The GIS division is part of the planning department and was formally established in October of 1996 with 4 full-time staff members, 1 intern, and that includes the supervisor, Jan Chezik. At this time, the GIS staff began to convert paper maps into electronic maps by a method called digitizing, where a tool similar to a mouse with a clear sight on it is used to click points on polygons in order to draw a picture. That sounds kind of far-fetched, but that's kind of how it works. You draw a picture electronically into the computer system that would eventually produce the layers that form the mapping system that we now have today. It was slow and extremely tedious work, and as our GIS supervisor, Jan Chezik, can attest, has been here since the beginning, who has been here since the beginning, logging in over 35 years with Olmsted County, all with the planning department, and 26 years as our GIS supervisor. Mary Sheehan, there's Mary, is one of our GIS analysts, is another longtime GIS staff member, has been with the county for 20 years. Although not with us here in person today, Jen Rand Weaver is our GIS data administrator, and she's been with the county for 23 years and works remotely out of state for over 6 years now. GIS specialist Skylar Show is our newest staff member, and she's with us today, and she just started yesterday. So today will be her first day with our department. So she was in the
Not all
all-day
meetings go like this.
So we're glad to have her aboard. Our remaining GIS staff members include analyst Dave McAllister, specialist Adam Nowinski, and specialist Teresa Blader, and all have been with the county between 3 and 6 years. So we have a good staff. I could talk about these folks all day long, but Jan has a PowerPoint presentation, and when she's finished, I'll kind of wrap us up. She's got lots of pictures.
This is up? Okay. Good morning. Thank you for having me here. I'm excited to give you a little bit of an overview of the GIS division. We've been kind of in the spotlight with redistricting this past few months, and then also with COVID-19 support for GIS. So I'm excited to just kind of talk about what we do. We have 3 main areas that we support. It's countywide base mapping, our E911 addressing, which is moving to the next generation 911 project, and then our deployment of our ArcGIS Enterprise, which is because of the ELA that you guys all supported and Heidi supported. Countywide base mapping and GIS data, we are the central hub for the development, the maintenance, and the distribution of over 100 GIS data feature layers throughout the county.
We support numerous cities, counties, townships, the state with our data. And then our countywide AutoCAD base mapping is really the heart of where everything begins with our parcel mapping, our road center lines, and our city limit boundaries. And Mary and Skylar are really the two people that will really be working on the base mapping end of things. This is just kind of an overview of, you know, us as being the hub of the data and our support locally to a lot of different applications at the state, the local level, the federal level, internally with our departments and with city departments. So this is just kind of a good overview of that. I'm trying to rush through this so you guys can make your bus. The countywide E91 addressing is really a very critical part of what we do. We coordinate E91 addressing and roadway naming with 16 address authorities. That includes 7 counties and 9 cities. We coordinate with 35 roadway naming authorities. That includes 9 cities, 18 townships, 7 counties, and MnDOT. We coordinate with 16 different E911 addressing grids and 20 postal delivery zip codes. So when we're working on addressing, we have to take all that into account before an address is assigned. So it's a very time-consuming, critical part of our job. The next generation 911 statewide GIS data project is really huge. That we're moving away from enhanced 911 to the state 911 next generation project, which is really GIS focused. So GIS data that we support for this project is really going to be the foundation of running this application. So the level of what we do becomes even higher in a critical nature. Back in 2018, at that time, 80% of 911 calls came from a wireless device. So geographic location of where you are in the county becomes really important, and that's why Next Generation 911 has developed. It's going to improve the location of the validation of 911 calls. The state of Minnesota, the Minnesota Department of Public Safety, Division of Emergency Communication Network developed a Next Gen 911 GIS roadmap. And so our tasks and the data standards that we're incorporating need to be completed to support the statewide project. These are the 5 required layers: our road center lines, our address points, our PSAP boundaries, emergency service boundaries that include police, like law enforcement, fire, and medical, and then the provisioning boundaries, which define the areas that we, as Olmsted County, would provide support for.
What is PSAP?
Public Safety Answering Point. So that's where the calls come in. The Next Generation 911 project, our role.
Dispatch center, Sheila. It's our dispatch center.
Start that.
As soon as she said that.
So our role for as Olmsted County addressing staff and GIS staff is that we will create, maintain, and document data. We have to meet a 98% accuracy rate before we pass our data off to the state system. So our level of work just raised the bar. We have to keep the data current in a timely fashion and work with what the state's going to want us to do. We have to upload our data to a statewide GIS data portal as often as they tell us we're going to need to. We need to coordinate our information with the PSAP coordinators within our region and with the addressing authorities within our region.
So has this rolled out yet, Jan?
Pardon?
Is this rolled out yet, or it's
No.
being developed?
No, it's still in development.
What is their?
They were looking at this year, but there's a statewide map that we can access on the NG91 data portal that shows statewide all the counties' status of their work. We're right kind of at the middle of the pack where everyone else is. It's a lot of work because we're not just doing this work, we're also doing our daily work. So it really adds a lot of extra work onto us.
Yep.
But it has a very important outcome. Right now we have, there's 7 validation phases that we have to go through with our data. We've passed 2 of them, and we are now working in the ESN, the emergency numbering system, and the street name validation process. So those are kind of going hand in hand. We're in the process, hopefully to get through those within the next month. and then we'll move on to the last three validations. And then I want to move into the ArcGIS enterprise deployment, and this is where we really support the enterprise, and it really, with the support of Heidi and your guys' approval and support with our enterprise license agreement purchase, we have really rolled out GIS throughout the county. We are the support, we're the hub where people come to when they want to get involved with GIS, so we're there to help mentor them and give them the tools they need and help them get their projects off the ground, and we're with them throughout the project. In 2018, we have 5 departments or 5 areas within the county that use GIS, and we shared like 42 different licenses. Now we've added like 15 more areas. You can kind of see in the slide here. We've really grown. We've touched some really great areas that have benefited from GIS, and I think you're going to be seeing more story maps presented at the county board. Story maps are going out to the public for communicating information. That is really having a positive impact of how we share information with the public and with our elected officials.
I'm sorry to be slow to catch up here, but how are these various departments? Give me some examples of how the county attorney uses GIS. What's the role for GIS for the county attorney?
They'll use GIS to if they want to get information on a case that they're looking at, they'll utilize it. They have access to our web mapping, so they utilize the web mapping to look up information. We're just there, for them, for anything that they do. At the end of this, I'm going to have a few slides of some projects that we've worked on that you guys have maybe been exposed to or will be exposed to.
So what, I'm sorry, I just need a baseline. What goes into the GIS generally? What kind of data are we collecting beyond, I thought it was all geographic location information, but evidently it's more?
It's everything. It can be appraiser boundaries. It can be your commissioner boundaries. It can be park locations. It can be facilities or infrastructure within a park. It's everything. Anything that has an XY location can be a layer within GIS. So when you kind of build that Subway sandwich, you bring in all those, those features to get the results of what you're trying to analyze.
So when you do the GIS, you must bring in other data, though. For instance, there's approximately 1,200 families in Olmsted County that are low income. Where are they? So the GIS could identify them if you knew the other data,
right,
who they were. So you combine those somehow?
Yes, we have access to information from the census that we can use to look at that information. So that's where we're working with community services and public health. They really have an emphasis on looking at that
So in turn,
data.
then you could give that information to Health and Human Services, and you could say, has your public health nurses visited these locations, and what did you find out?
Right. Yep, there's access for that. A lot of it's private data, so we have to be careful of how we work with that information and how we share it. My staff, we do the data privacy training, so we can look and work with that data and help other departments work with the data.
My guess is then that we have falling prevention programs. We could track the houses or the places that the services go to help people who have fallen. We could put those on a GIS system and say, here's where these houses are. Maybe we should send out HRA to look at these houses to make their houses safer so that the people would stop falling.
Yes. I mean, if you have a question, bring it to the GIS or to the department that works with that type of stuff, and we can help you use it in a GIS.
How many projects can I give the GIS team?
We need more staff.
I got a couple of trees that need trimmed. Can you look that up on the GIS and see if you could send somebody out this afternoon?
So I just gave you 2 examples of what the county's working on to make life better, but there must be others.
And actually, we did work with public health staff to start developing some of that information.
So that brings to his question, because I don't want him to inundate you with all of his personal requests. What's the process for determining how your staff resource is deployed?
Well, our goal right now is we work with departments. We want to empower other departments to do that type of work. So we're here to help them, and then they utilize their staff to actually do the GIS work. And the ELA, the Enterprise License Agreement, has helped us spread that opportunity out there, so staff have access to the tools they need, the data they need, and then us as a resource to help mentor them.
So we're building the capacity of our staff in every department to be able to access GIS data to customize to their particular needs.
That's my goal, and that's why you see the figure in this thing, on this slide here, is that we have 478 county staff who are currently using ArcGIS technology and growing, and it's because of the ELA, and that's my goal. It's been my goal from day one, is to really spread the use of it throughout departments, because they know their data, they know what they want to do, and we're here to help them get there.
And the LA is what? License agreement? Okay.
Yep, the Enterprise License Agreement for our GIS software. We've been in it for 4 years now, and I think we've had a lot of really good success with it, and it continues to grow.
One other question that I'll just do now, as long as I'm on a roll. Early in the presentation, you talked about 16 addressing authorities, 35 road aid, 20 postal delivery zip codes. Is our GIS function and our staff focused just on Olmsted County, or do we work with other jurisdictions?
From the addressing perspective, we work with other jurisdictions. I mean, we're the hub, so all the addressing that is compiled within Olmsted County, we put it into the centralized database that feeds our dispatch, which feeds NextGen 911, which feeds our permitting system. So we coordinate with all of them. We're not siloed where we do it ourselves. We coordinate with everyone around us, because emergencies don't stop at boundaries. So we have to work together.
So do we provide your support services to other counties, or to the city of Rochester, to Byron, to Dodge County?
Only within Olmsted County, and I mean, we
Olmsted.
do the addressing for the city of Rochester. We've been doing it since 2000, back prior, before we actually had an online addressing database. I've been a part of that. So we're a good hub. I mean, we know what's going on, and we try to prevent issues from developing.
But our hub is Olmsted County geography only, and Olmsted County cities and departments. Not Dodge County Public Health can't call and say where are the seniors that have had the fall protection program.
If they need Olmsted County data, they can get it. You know,
It's
if they
all
need it
Olmsted
for their,
County
yep, for their, yep. But our data gets quilted into a statewide database. So that's why these standards are so important.
And then it becomes public information?
Yes, yep, yep. All right. So I'm just gonna do just a quick showcase of a couple of projects here. This is just a project we were helping with the appraisers to look at missing appraisal areas. This is our 2022 redistricting. This is an Olmsted County Conservation Tour story map that you may have been aware of. This is the COVID-19 report story map. This is just our county-wide interactive GIS map that everyone has access to. The general land use plan update of 2045 has been using GIS story maps. This is the county virtual tour. The Oxbow Park Nature Center update is a story map. This is a countywide website that shows directions of how to get to our buildings. This is the tank application that's used to show community resources. It helps staff work with their clients to identify where they need to go for resources. The social vulnerability index story map was something that was a staff person had worked on. The long-range transportation plan was all done through story maps this year. We have an Olmsted County road closure application that County Public Works staff maintain. There's a collection of county park data that all their resources that they're working on collecting and mapping. We're creating an electronic county map book so you can bring in pages and look at individual pages of information online, and it'll be current. This is the county campground map. And then finally, county park maps. So these are just a few of the projects that we've helped out with.
You guys
So
really don't
the
do
role
very
that
much, do you?
GIS staff plays, that you've collected the data, then the Parks Department puts their story map together.
Pardon?
How it works? Is
What's that?
That you've compiled the data and have the license for the use of the data, but each department, like the Parks Department, does their maps, and the social vulnerability index was done by public health, and is that how it's working?
Right, yep. We help them. We give them the tools. We mentor them on how to use the tools. If they have questions on something they want to do, we help find a solution for them. So we're really there to help them get their projects started and to the end. So it's been very positive. I welcome ideas and questions and help for projects, because that's what the ELA is for. Any questions?
Nice job.
Thanks.
Big
I'll
job.
turn it over to Ben.
Big
He's
job.
gonna finish up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jen.
All righty, so just to, y'all probably knew some of those things that GIS does. You probably didn't know everything, and believe me, that's not everything. That's just those are probably just some of the things that some of y'all have probably seen at various times over the years. The GIS, the enterprise license agreement, was huge. You know, Heidi had really been supportive of that, and when y'all made the decision to fund that, to finance that 4 years ago, you see how the change has been. We went from 48 staff members throughout the county using GIS to 478 in 4 years' time. So that has just multiplied exponentially. So that's been a huge boon, and that's really helped other departments utilize not just the mapping tools, but also the data analytics tools and the other technologies that GIS offers. And they have a world of technologies that they can offer for a small fee, of course, in addition to the enterprise license agreement. So we have to be cognizant of that. As Jan stated earlier, you know, 14 to 18 departments utilize the GIS, 478 members. We started with 4 staff members and a supervisor. In 2016, we increased to 7, and that's where we've been since 2016. So what we would like to do in the coming year is, or for the budget year, is we would like to request 2 additional FTEs, but we'll do that during our budget process. We'd like to thank Heidi for her leadership and her support of GIS. I think she realized early on, for several years, I think, with on the Health and Human Services side, the tool that this product is able to help in so many different ways, and allowing that to be spread throughout the county is just, as y'all see, it's just caught on like wildfire. So every day, you know, Jan talks to folks that I want to do this, I want to do that, how can I do it? And that's really great. So we've become a real hub on that. So with that, I just want to wrap up and say thanks for having us here today. And if y'all have any more other questions, y'all know where to find us. A lot of the tools are on the website.
Look on my GIS to find you.
Yeah. Sir?
Look on my GIS to find you.
I'm not hard to find. So thank you very much. I know y'all want to get onto your tour.
All right, thanks, Ben.
Thank you, sir.
We're gonna postpone the mid-year priority update. Maybe next meeting or the meeting after. So board and committee reports, Matt?
No, nothing.
Sheila?
Greg Wright and I attended the District 9 meeting of the Association of Minnesota Counties yesterday. And it is It's very interesting to hear the way that various counties have, what their experience has been with ARP funds and with elections and redistricting. I was struck by the number of commissioners who run without opposition. There's quite a few. There will be, including myself, which I'm happy about. But there will be a very substantial change in some of the membership. One of the things that I came away with thinking is that we really need to spend a little time getting updated on the broader public concern about elections. And we had a little conversation in physical development about that this morning, and I know staff have noted that we may want to take a look at that. So I think that's probably from the last meeting, probably the most significant piece of outside contact. I'll hold it there.
Great.
Wednesday morning, one of the projects that we've been working on, Small Grains, is going to have a demonstration on Martin Larson's farm at 8 in the morning. And if any of the commissioners are interested, I can give you the information about where it's located, and you can show up. It's at 9 o'clock in the morning. There's going to be a farmer's breakfast. I don't know what a farmer's breakfast is, but it sounds good to me.
Champagne lobster.
On your farm. On your farm. Yeah.
Champagne and caviar.
Croissant. Don't forget croissant.
Mr. Commissioner,
Just a
I
second.
need to make a point that if you end up with, would you please just let Lisa know if you're planning to attend that, because that's not a posted meeting, and so we can't have quorum there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Yeah. It's just
Right.
informal.
And it's Oatly that's trying to secure acreage for this. So we don't have a program ready to try to run the incentives. So you just got to kind of be careful that we're not there to drum up business for what we're planning to do, because it's not ready. But these are guys that are trying to secure farmland for small grains. The only thing worth mentioning is we did have a Lake Improvement District meeting week before last, and thankful to say that most everything is clean, done, ready, and just looking to the future. It's only taken 13 years. My time, chair the whole time on this thing. So I'm thinking that, I'm leaving this the end of this year when I finally retire, that I'm leaving it in good hands with Mark and whoever else wants to volunteer for this group.
Thank you.
Can't top that.
Stephanie.
I would like to just share with all of you a trip that I took back from Waseca to Rochester the other day through a windstorm. The cropland was blowing across the highways. There were sheriff's cars with their lights on to warn people to slow down. The dust storm was, at times we could not see past the hood of our car. It was amazing. And yet we would go by some areas where there wasn't any dust. And what do you think the difference was?
Cover crops?
Cover crops. It was amazing. And that dust storm, I'm serious about. It made me think about what it must have been like in the Dust Bowl. I don't know where all that topsoil is going to end up, if it ends up on someone else's farm or if it ends up in our water supply, which is too bad. But it was a real visual lesson on the difference between cover crops and not cover crops.
It ended up on my white side.
And it's,
I don't know. We had our house cleaned last year, and now it's just filthy.
yeah. So you were right in the middle of part of that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I got a short quote from Thomas Edison. So he said, our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time. All right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, road tour, 5 minutes.
5 minutes and then out in front, is that right? The bus is out in front and our fabulous tour guides are ready.
Hey, well, my brother-in-law got a 25-inch and Timmy, Timmy caught a northern. Where do I got that picture? So they can bring 4 home.
Nice boat. Did you?
Yep. Got COVID up there after I caught this fish.